definition of coaching is helping people achieve their level of awesomeness.
I'm coaching from the desert. 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 Well, hello, and welcome to the Coaching from the Desert, the official podcast of the International Coaching Federation, ICF Arizona chapter. I am Dave A. Cornelius, affectionately known as Dr. Dave, and this podcast brings this vibrant energy of the coaching world to life right from the heart of Arizona's, majestic desert. In the future, we may have conversations from other deserts worldwide. And so this is the launch of this podcast. And I'm so excited to have, these great people with me. We'll have Jill Duran, who's going to be here to join us. We'll have Chris Newhouse also, who would be in here, jazz hands. And we'll have the marvelous Elle Cronin. And they're going to describe the journey of creating and nurturing coaching in organization, the practices of coaching in organizations. And I'll give you some insights from the external coach lens, what it's like working with teams, and also as a learning facilitator and explorer. So Jill, Chris, Elle, welcome to the launch of Coaching from the Desert.
Really excited to be here and excited to be part of the very first podcast.
Yeah, so am I. So look, I'm going to throw this out, and when we get started, and you guys could choose which order you go in. It's really up to you. So I want you to share a phrase or statement that inspires you as a coach. And if you are truly inspired, I want you to sing a song. You could do that too, right? And then when you're done, you could do a 30-second elevator pitch about who you are. So whoever wants to go first, you go for it.
Chris is really good with singing, so I'm going to turn it to you, Chris.
I think trying to summarize coaching in a single word is tough, but I'll go with insightful.
Oh, okay. That's great. Insightful. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to give you a 30-second pitch?
So I'm Chris Newhouse. By day, I'm a project lead at a medical diagnostics company, Roche Medical, and based in Oro Valley near Tucson. And by evening and by night, I'm an active coach and have been the president of the ICF Arizona chapter last year. And so I'm the past president this year and proud member of the board, and super happy to be a part of this community and to help and serve the people that we all try to serve in our communities as well.
Thank you.
Chris is being modest, but anyway, that's all right. So I'm Jill Duran, and I am currently open to work. I ended my 23-year career with Cox Communications at the end of December. And the quote that I have really found motivational for myself and really drives a lot of what I do, I don't know who said it, but I heard it at a conference once, and it said, "You may be uncomfortable with change. I guarantee you'll be more uncomfortable with irrelevancy." And I think that's so powerful in terms of coaching, because we are continuing to grow and evolve so that we don't become irrelevant, right? We're looking for that growth. And so one of the things that I really do bring to an organization and a team is the fact that I really help support the achievement of those business goals by creating a spectrum of talent solutions, which can include coaching. So anywhere from helping people get out of their own way to making sure that they stay relevant in the continually changing environment, all the way through to how do we grow our talent for the future, or how do I grow myself for the future? And I think everybody that's part of the ICF community is fabulous. I've had a chance to be on the board and serve as a volunteer and just be a member. So I encourage everyone to get involved. Elle?
Gosh, sharing the stage with you guys is really cool. I'm Elle Cronin, and I am the professional director of professional development with ICF Arizona. One of the phrases and quotes that really is the structure, the framework for me as a coach and what I do as a coach is how you do anything is how you do everything. So During the day, I work with the learning and development team for Maricopa County. I also work as an executive coach with clients that are just getting into coaching and wanting to achieve peak performance in their leadership. And I work a lot of times with middle managers that are just learning about emotional intelligence and how to make decisions and find alignment with who they are and the company that they work with. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys today.
Thank you so much. I really love the quotes that was shared today. So let's just talk about, how do we define coaching for people who are new to coaching?
Yeah, I usually like to talk about these 3 categories of roles that we usually tap into to help distinguish what coaching is and what coaching isn't. And I usually talk about a consultant, a mentor, and a coach as those 3 things. Consultant is somebody who you hire as an expert and you do what they say because they're the expert, you know. A mentor is somebody who's typically walked a path before you and gives you advice and says, hey, I think you should try this. I think you should do that. So both of those are still very much telling. And, you know, with a mentor, you're more likely to sometimes follow, sometimes not follow, but they're still telling you what to do. But with a coach, it's quite the opposite. We know that the person in front of us has the insights within them, and it's more about providing different lenses to look at the struggles that they're having, the issues that they're struggling with, to help them uncover those insights for themselves so that they can discover the path forward. Something to add, others?
I agree with Chris that, you know, segmenting things in terms of consulting, mentoring, coaching, and you could even add training to that too sometimes, and learning a new skill. I found that most people's experiences have been like kind of an amalgamation of all of those. And so when they come to coaching and they haven't had it before, it can be a challenge. And like Chris said, they know themselves, right? It's within them. And I think there's a lot more creative tension in a coaching relationship that makes people a little uncomfortable. And then the other way that I would add that I kind of help people understand coaching is I'll get a little more information from them first about what their experience has been, what that's felt like for them, because some people have had great experiences, some people maybe not so great experiences. And then that allows me to maybe really delve in and create some analogies for them. So it's a little more visual and visceral for them as they go into that coaching journey.
Nice. The way that I explain coaching, especially, you know, coaching for the county where it's new to a lot of people, and knowing that there's a difference between coaching as like sports coaches, right? That they just physical therapists, that they're also coaching some capacity. But the coaching that we're talking about, it's more on the realm of emotional intelligence. So the way that I like to explain to people is that coaching is the process of having self-critical reflection. And I think I like to say the critical reflection only because all of us have the capability of being self-reflective, of looking back and thinking about the things that you should have done or you could have done or you wish you had done more or had done less of. But critical thinking, critical self-reflection in that process is where we as coaches operate, is where we're holding the space for them to be critical with what was their thought process behind their action. And we really, humans don't really have a lot of time that we give the time and space to analyze on why we behave a certain way, on why we made choices a certain way. And we all have the spots that are unseen within ourselves that sometimes, and most of the time, an objective perspective can really help you achieve peak performance in your decision-making process. And I think that that's really the power of coaching. So really skilled finesse coaches can give the space for people to have self-critical reflection in a very safe and mature way.
And those explanations and definitions, you know, really resonate. And I use a simpler way of telling people that coaching is like, we're doing a dance like a merengue or something like that. Sometimes, I'm guiding you when you need it, and sometimes you are in the process, but at the end of the day, it's your journey, and I'm just here to support you. And I heard that probably from some other coaching program, but I added the merengue part of it because I thought it would be fun, just
Not
slipping in
tango, merengue.
merengue, no tango. So, hey, let's talk about the internal coaching programs that you have like spun up in your organization. What do they look like?
Want me to go first again? I can do that. So
Yeah, Chris, I think it's a pattern.
there you go. We'll stick with the pattern for now. Huh? Okay. So, like I mentioned, I work for a company called Roche. We're actually a very large international company of over 90,000 employees across the world. And what ended up happening is we had for a long time a resource center for kind of career development that was all manned by volunteers. Anybody could volunteer their time. And one of the types of sessions we offered there was just spot coaching, like a one-on-one. And most people would come to that with some kind of career advice need or something like that. But it became apparent, that there was a much higher demand for actual long-term engagements in coaching. And so actually it was very grassroots. A group of people that were already ICF certified got together and say, hey, why don't we just offer, internally coaching to anybody? Just completely democratize it rather than as it was in the past where, real coaching engagements with a professional coach was typically something you had to go through HR with. It was only for the most senior leaders. And we decided we're going to actually open it up that anybody in the organization can sign up. So we put up a website, ended up by now, we started with about 80. We're up to over 200 coaches across the world that are providing pro bono coaching internally. And we have a website where people can look up our bios and a sign-up sheet to get time in our calendars. And it's worked out really well. In fact, we have much more demand than we're able to even supply in terms of the amount of the coaching effort. But we have 85 countries represented. We have coached in 28 different languages. In last year, I just got the statistics from 2024. That's what I'm looking up at here. We ran over 17,000 coaching sessions for over 3,500 clients, where we had an average new clients per quarter, people signing up per quarter of 354. So you just do the math, and we were like multiple clients per day of new people signing up for this. So it's clear that the demand and the need is there, and it's really exciting that we can do this in this way and really, take skills that we have as professional coaches and give that to our own colleagues across the organization.
Nice.
That is amazing work, Chris and team. That's great.
Jill, were you gonna get in?
Yeah, sure, I can go. So, I just had the opportunity to work with a line of business that they really looked at their strategy and where they wanted to go and continue to say, you know what, coaching is going to be a continual need and skill of our leaders. We just need to continue to evolve it and enhance it. And so with that, we were able to start something that we kind of called the coaching culture within this line of business. And I think the keys to success for that was really around a lot of involvement from the key stakeholders, and not just their buy-in, but their active participation as well. And so we were able to really harness with about 400 leaders, whether that was people leaders or process leaders. We were able to get them through some coach training. And then we really tried to negate the forgetting curve, which says that there's some different stats out there for the forgetting curve. But if you're not familiar, it kind of just says Herman Ebbinghaus, I think was his name. He said that, when you go to a class, you forget about 80% of it within 30 days. I mean, that's not a very good ROI, for people's time. And so one of the things that we tried to do with the work that we were doing with coaching is really creating small group cohorts of peer-like leaders so that they could come together on a monthly basis and just practice and lean into each other and talk about current situations and how they would coach through them. And that's really kind of how ours started and took root.
Interesting.
I really lucked out to work with Maricopa County because, last year we were voted as top one of the best employers of the state of Arizona. And I'm just excited because they have been quite welcoming to understanding what coaching culture even is. And the way that I approached this, I remember 2 years ago, I called Chris and I was like, hey, help me understand, how do I do coaching for the company I work with? So we brainstorm a little bit, a couple ideas, understanding a little bit on the process that he went through, allow me to change and pivot a little bit on how I approach to introduce coaching culture. Back then, I was doing HR as an HR business partner. A lot of work that I used to do was with employee relations. So I started introducing coaching conversations. So it really wasn't even coaching culture. It was just the concept of change the type of questions, right? So Tim, change the questions, then you can change the culture. So by introducing the different type of questions with more of a coaching mindset, so open-ended to really allow questions that are more preference and judgment, where you can really understand where people are coming from, allow me to introduce coaching culture in leadership training. So more people started seeing, wow, when I do change the questions, look at this, like people actually answer with honesty and safety, and there's more win-win resolution. So now we do have a transformational leadership coaching program. It is a 7-week program designed for middle managers all the way to executive managers, where they learn how to be a coach, but more from a mentorship process. So again, we're just teaching questions and probing deeper, more working on the quadrants of self-awareness and self-awareness and actualization. But then last year, I was able to launch. Managers really wanted to learn how to coach defined by the ICF. So we finally launched a program where it's a 4-week process where actually managers learn all the ICF coaching core competencies, some of the markers, and they do get to practice with one another. So the big vision here is to have a little bit of what Chris has set up and what Jill shared, a safe space where people get to practice. But because we had so much legwork to do on even introducing tips and tricks, and there was so much willingness from managers to learn, it's been such a fulfillment space for a lot of people, fulfilling space for a lot of people to practice, learn, so that later on we can create this shared pool of coaches that they can start teaching and coaching one another. So that's the big vision, but the legwork has been quite fun.
Well, I could only imagine, those are big numbers, and, just working as an external coach coming in from the outside, we're normally parachuting in because there's some performance crisis or some vision that the organization is trying to pursue, and oftentimes, the group that I work with, it's actually the digital product development group, right? They're writing software, they're building some products that they're bringing to market, and it's the expectation is, it's like, hey, within 3 to 12 months, we need to have a coaching practice, not only a practice, but also for people to be able to perform within some construct. Let's call it lean or agile is what the space that I play in. So oftentimes we're working with, executives, directors, managers at different levels, and they all have different roles. So not only do we come in as a coach, but also as a consultant and a learning facilitator. So oftentimes we have to bring them up to speed. If, like we want to make Chris a lean portfolio manager. Well, we'll have to take him through training for that. Or we want to make someone a product manager, all the way down to the team members themselves. And so oftentimes I'm partnering with also other coaches who are external, right? And we're all trying to figure out how to work together and build this program for the organization to, really solve what we call those big, hairy, audacious goals that they have to, deliver things. And I'm dating myself by using the BAG term, right? If you read that book, so it's a lot of work coming in from the outside, but oftentimes what's really cool is that we leave a program that's up and running for that organization. And generally we get to partner with OD, organization development, to also on HR to bring that forward. So that's just an external view of coaching versus, doing it from the inside out. We're coming in trying to solve problems for that. So I think we kind of covered, how your programs got started as a question. We kind of folded that in. And then, so let's talk about some of the key success factors that, you want to highlight as part of this conversation.
So I think for us, for sure, champions, and they were kind of at different levels. Like first was the kind of core people that decided, yeah, we want to do this, and they took the lead. Mm-hmm. So they were kind of the champions for the initiative to begin with. They, gathered up the resources to set up the internal website, to get that information out to our employees. They really took that initiative to pull everybody together, Then once it was really becoming more real, and we recognized like we could use a lot more resources in terms of tools to facilitate matching clients to coaches and things like that, that we needed a champion at a more senior level that could help provide funding too. And so it was really, that was kind of the next wave that we proved it. We were very good about capturing metrics as we went in that first year of how many people we were serving, the demand, what sort of topics were they looking to discuss at an abstract level, and really were able to prove the value of what we were delivering, and thereby convincing more senior leaders to give an investment. And it isn't big, again, still, it's like we're still pro bono coaching, and it's more about the tools and infrastructure that they're facilitating that makes it possible that we could expand to the size that we're at right now.
So we're talking about success or things that helped us be successful. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think similar to Chris, the key stakeholders being able to have, whether that's a sponsor or champion, you kind of need both. You need the sponsor to help find you the funds, and you need the champion to be the cheerleader along the way. And I think that is something that those relationships need to continue to be nurtured along the way, and don't forget to kind of fold them in. And I think one of the things that we had was we did have some champions at the senior leader table on a consistent basis to share the experience and what was happening, so that they could bring forward the successes and how this was working, and how it was working to achieve the business strategy. And a key relationship is with the human resource, the business partner. They are in lockstep with us senior leaders. And so you really need to make sure you've got everybody's buy-in and engagement throughout the process. And I said this a little earlier, the other piece that I think was really helped success and some longevity in the program was that we really incorporated the leaders as active participants, not just a participant, I guess, and they played active roles. Let me step back. They played active roles in the program versus just being a participant, if that makes sense. And I think that really added a lot of accountability to the program as well. Elle?
I think what Jill, what you said about the relationship, and I know we talked about this before, the relationship between the coaching, whoever is performing coaching, the coaching program, and HR in any capacity. I think that if there is one bond that has to be strong enough for the message to be congruent so that other people jump in and they want to be part of, is that bond. It's understanding what is it, when you're thinking about doing a SWOT analysis for like, what is that the HR business partner team really needs out of this out of the managers and all the employee relations. So like, what are they observing? And then talking to the managers and the employees in general, just saying, what is it that you're longing for more of, or do you want less of? And I think that once we were able to do that, congruency is really how I measured to know that we were on the right path. Like, am I looking at all my stakeholders that are involved in this program, and are their needs being met? So is the HR team that really works with employee relations and performance reviews, like, are they finding a little bit easier to talk to the people that are involved in those issues? And when I'm talking about succession planning for managers that are aspiring managers, do they feel that they have access to the right training? And do they feel prepared to for their next level? Do they might not feel prepared, but do they feel that they have the support? And I think that was some of the key success in a program that is so new still. And then there's just the how many people were we serving, right? So when I took over the program, we were doing about 20 people or 40 people a year that was going through some of this coaching transformational leadership program. And now when we send the nomination process, we're getting over 100 people nominating themselves or people nominating. So we were able to, and I'm talking about 100 people every quarter. So like, we quadrupled the amount of interest. So that has been a key performance indicator for me to know that, okay, we are living in congruency with our vision and their needs. And there is credibility now in the department. Not that that wasn't before, but there is even more credibility in the department and credibility in the system that coaching creates, enough that people want to be part of this. So I think that this is kind of how I know that we're in the right direction. And, Chris was sharing a little bit about data. When it comes to data, to know if things are going well, like, you have to do in stages. So for us, we're still in the beginning stage. I think that the first 5 years, I would still consider beginning stage of any program. So the likability of the program, congruency of the program, that's kind of what I'm managing. And then I'm looking forward already to understand later on, to do more of analysis on what kind of data do we put, what numbers do we really gather to know that this is moving forward the way that we need to. But I'm really excited.
Man, you guys give a lot of time. We, as an external coach, like I said, we have a very small window. So, when we're looking for success, what are the success factors? I'm looking for the client's voice, KPIs, observations, and Gemba walks, right? Things that I have to go around and see how things are going. Like I said, we always start into the digital product development space there, and then we build relationships out, and when we get to HR, if we're building relationships with HR, we know we're doing a really, really great job for the organizations. And it's just about telling those stories, right, and getting those stories out there, and making people excited about seeing that there are actual shifts and changes in the organization that's taking place. So there's higher engagement, there's greater quality, right? We're having a faster time to market. So we're dealing with things that generate revenue. So the stress level for that, you could imagine, could be oftentimes really high, across the enterprise. And the leaders themselves, they play an active part, in the work that they do. Playing in different roles, and making sure that they have funding, and they could actually share this back with their partners that they may have in other departments. And sometimes we also have to deal with external organizations, that we have to bring up to be able to serve the needs of that client. So it's sometimes the complexity of working across so many different roles and bringing them together. And you're talking about congruency, making sure all of them, are really getting the value, from the coaching, from the learning, and really just being highly engaged. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was, such good stuff that each one of you have to contribute to the conversation. So what about what didn't go well? That's always the fun stuff to talk about, right? What didn't work?
I'll share with mine. I'll break the pattern here,
There
Chris.
you go. Boom.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like the coaches we are. I don't know that I have anything in the last 2 years that I have anything that I can say it didn't go well. But we had a couple little things that we had to tweak, such as, and it depends on the organization behavior of the organization. So for us, as a government entity, having multiple departments, and what I discovered is that people do have a sense of they wanted to be in person, they wanted to connect, and the level of vulnerability required of somebody to share, it was at this company was easier to do in person. So that's one of the little things that I had not considered before, because as an external coach before, I'm very comfortable doing any sessions and building any rapport, right? As you know, through virtually, whether it's this country or it's global. So I didn't really think about how the delivery process would be in alignment with the culture, with the organizational behavior of the employees of the company. So those are the only things that, as we're continue to deliver, we are learning different how the behaviors are within our culture, because of the talent we attract, because of the vision and the mission of the county. So I think that those are the just keep minor little tweaks that we've had. But again, it's the beginning stages. It's not as far as Jill had and Chris had.
Yeah, I'd say for us, the thing that we've struggled with all along is capacity. Like, as soon as the word got out that we were providing this, like, we had way more demand than we had capacity. We beefed that up a little bit, and that was part of this, having a champion and getting some funding by actually contracting with BetterUp to provide a certain amount of supplemental external coaches to help keep up with demand. That kept up with demand for the next 6 months, and then we had basically expended all of the hours that we had pre-purchased with BetterUp as well. And so this continues to be a little bit of a struggle, particularly since it is completely democratized. It's based on when you sign up, can you find a coach that's got capacity and availability? Some people get frustrated because they're like, oh, Joe next to me, he got a coach, why can't I? And it's just don't have the capacity. And the other thing about it being completely organic is, my organization, my company is European based, and most of the coaches that are in this pool of over 200 do not come from the US. Yet we have a very large employee base in the US, and so there's definitely a mismatch there too. We do not have enough coaches within this time zone and that can cover English speaking and can cover this time zone in the US based on the demand. So that's something continues to be part of our growing pains, and we continue to look for additional ways to increase capacity and in order to be able to serve this high demand that we have.
Yeah, I think the things that I would say that I would want to rethink, and again, whether you say didn't go well or challenges, there's either internal to the program or external. And I think external is, just the pace of the business and everything that continues to change in the environment, and that might create shifting priorities. So that's always kind of hard to keep in front of. The more internal, I think, would be it was a resource heavy framework, and I would definitely recommend streamlining that. And then, also just having more of that vision of what does this evolve into? We were just so busy managing the program itself that we didn't really have the capacity to say, how do we continue to make this, evolve it, right? So again, back to that, maybe uncomfortable with change, guarantee you'll be more uncomfortable with irrelevancy, is how do you continue to make the program relevant, in a structured way for that amount of people? So those are some things that I think kind of came up as some challenges. And then I think I'd mentioned earlier, you got to continue to nurture the relationships with the sponsors and the champions.
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. As an external coach, one of the big things that, and I'm sure even as internal coaches, as you're trying to bring about change, there's always resistance. right? And it's trying to make sure that as you're going through that process, that you have some type of a change management practice, and you build a community around what you're trying to do, so that it has some life after you leave. Because one of the great big things that you hate to see is like, oh, you build up this great capability within the organization, and then the organization returns back to status quo. And then you could hear the great disappointment by the people who are champions and trying to move this forward. So it's really important as an external coach to bring some good change management practices in, and build a community around that shift and change in the organization. And it's not just for coaching, right? It's just about anything else that you bring into an organization where you're trying to do a shift in the way they do, the way they work, the way they think, right? I mean, that's really critical. So let's talk about assessments. I mean, are there any assessments that you use to figure out if you're left, right, upside down, things are working well, anything like that?
Oh, the world of psychodata.
There's certainly a lot of assessments out there, yeah?
I love that world.
Yeah, I think the good news is there are a lot out there to choose from, and that most organizations have access to something. In our organization, they happen to have gravitated to the leadership circle profile, and utilize that quite a lot. I find that in addition to that, I find that really one-on-one 360s, where I interview as the coach, I actually interview the 5 or 6 people that a client is looking to get feedback from, provides a much richer feedback. That way you actually get concrete examples of behaviors that they've exhibited that are giving the wrong impact, So then when they're looking to make that shift, and how do they have a different impact, we can focus in on the behaviors that are kind of going in the wrong direction for them too. So I think those general assessments are great, plus really in-depth interview-based 360, I think are really helpful to provide people with that initial aha moments of like, oh, okay, this is where I need to course correct.
Yeah, we, for the program itself, actually developed a pre and post, and those assessments were based on coaching competencies, and it was completed both by the participants that were going to be going through the program and participating in it, as well as their direct reports. And so we really were able to compare and contrast, how do you see yourself with your coaching competencies, and how does your team? And then there's an opportunity there for them to work on that. And then we did pulse checks throughout, both around what the participant experience was and what they needed as they move forward throughout the program. And like Chris said, in any organization, they kind of gravitate towards one, but generally you've got personality assessments, you've got 360 assessments, team assessments, things like that, to kind of lean into. But that's what we did for our program, was we developed one with more focus towards the coaching competencies.
Yeah. Okay, before I dive into this, I'm going to share a little bit on why I love some of this data, but it comes with a caveat, because everybody loves assessments, and then there's the people that are going to be skeptical, and there's a reason why they're skeptical, right? When we think about psychodata in any capacity, we're trying to assess an indication on where people are. And I like to think about Daniel Goleman's work of those 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence, which is that between interpersonal communication and intrapersonal communication awareness. So the intrapersonal, what I've noticed, and this is where in an organization you would have to think, if you're going to choose an assessment, what do you want to assess, and why that type of assessment is important, and how does that then get in a cohesive approach to the coaching culture that you're trying to create. So I think that that's really important for anybody that is watching. So when we're thinking about intrapersonal, these are things that will be measured and help anything with self-awareness and self-management. So sometimes you might have people that don't know they don't have a lot of self-awareness of how they behave or what their patterns or some of their triggers, things that make them happy. And some people know themselves, but they don't know how to articulate and communicate where where they're at. So I think that when I'm thinking about assessments, what I enjoy, the way that we work at the county is we use temperament assessment. It's a quick foundation that assesses intrapersonal and interpersonal communication, right? So we are a very clan type of organization. So that means we need to have a lot of communication, and we treat everybody as, we work together all the time. So there is a sense of work family that comes with that organizational behavior. So for temperament, we use Real Colors, and Real Colors Foundation is based on the work. It comes from some of the work of Myers-Briggs. Now, Real Colors is just assessing temperament on what means, like, what are things that you enjoy, needs, joy, and preferable ways to be communicated to and communicate to others. So that creates a little bit of understanding within the team on how they need to approach one another. But to go a little bit of a step further, we do I can offer as well Myers-Briggs indicator, which is a personality indicator at that point. And the reason I like that is because when you work on the interpersonal, so just talking to the team, but when somebody is ready to understand a little bit about self-management, so what is it about them that is inherent, that is nurture and nature to them, on how a part of their personality, so not just the temperament, but other traits of their personality, that will help them articulate and advocate for systems that support who they are in an organization. So that's why I really enjoy Myers-Briggs for that reason. And then we also have StrengthsFinder, which allows to take people to peak performance. So now we're talking about coaching in a much more magnitude force, talking about, let's look through the lenses of everything is a strength. And then let's leverage those strengths that fits who you are, that is aligned a little bit with your personality, and then let's see how that measures with your temperament. So I find that important because it's not just one assessment that fits all. It really takes in the organization and the coach to understand, what do I want to assess? How would this assessment result benefit this team or this person? And what would be different once they have that awareness? And I think that that's how you make a decision on which assessment to use.
Yeah, I'd love to build on that, because I think that's a really important point. I typically, when I'm working with a new client for the first time, it's in that initial getting to know you and trying to figure out what are their goals, that we decide what is the best assessment. Because you're absolutely right, Al. If it's more about they need self-awareness, then maybe it's a 360. But if it's more about how do I articulate what I'm my strengths, then StrengthsFinder is a good tool, and so on, right? So they don't all serve the same purpose, and I think that's a great and really important point that you bring up.
And those are all, what you guys have contributed here is just really amazingly good. We start off generally with allowing people to gain an understanding that our assessments are not to be used for evil. And that's where we start with that kind of statement, because oftentimes people use assessments and metrics. We start beating people over the head with it, and so that we allow everyone to realize that we're trying to learn more about them and the metrics themselves. We said, teams, these are your metrics. It speaks to you. We want you to own those metrics. So we normally look at some performance aspects of how they're delivering things. But two key metrics that I've developed that I bring into organization, one of them is like people happiness experience, that we're really talking about, what really motivate people in terms of autonomy, purpose, and mastery, right? That's a Daniel Pink. kind of context. But then I take it a little further and look at some of the Scrum values of commitment and focus and openness and respect and courage, and allow the teams to start to evaluate themselves and each other about using those different markers. The second one that I've created was the people engagement experience, which is a 360. And it's talking about how are people contributing to conversations and innovation. Are they taking initiative to lead? Are they really understanding what the customer demands are and supporting the customers? And really, are they really coming up with new innovations? And so we use these different types of assessments to really understand the individuals and working within the team context, to be able to support each other. And it's not just the team members that are building stuff and delivering value for the organization, but it's also looking at their customers. And oftentimes we have external partners who are doing some of that building as well. So we're assessing them as well. And that gives us a nice clean picture in terms of, are they happy? Are they engaged? And are they delivering, the value that the organization is seeking? Look at that. I think we got to all of our questions, and we still have a few more minutes. So I really wanted to say, is there anything you guys want to add? Leave our audience with, some candy that they could walk around in their pockets later, pull it out and go like, oh yeah, I just got this from Elle. That was cool. Jill said this, or Chris said that. What do you guys want to leave our audience with today? That's one.
I do want to share that one of the parts that sometimes there's a gap between coaching culture or whoever the department is trying to set that motion forward, and then where else does that get reflected, right? So how do you carry through that culture? So I like to even think about the language that we use on post jobs, the language that we use on performance reviews, the language that we use when we're communicating with one another. So every area. So when you're thinking about recruitment, you're thinking about payroll, you're thinking about employee relations, all of those areas can be improved and finessed by using some different words that are more inclusive, that are more understanding of other people's perspectives, traits, temperaments, personality. So I think that one of the things, especially when we're doing assessments, is choosing one framework that everything else can be cohesive, and it can be the main framework on how a company communicates. So for us, as temperament theory being the foundation of everything, as real colors being the foundation, a lot of managers, a lot of HR business partners, they're looking at their performance reviews, they're looking at job descriptions, they're looking at orientation on all of those areas of HR, and how to include language that speaks to the temperament of a potential employee. And I think that that's important. That's how you know they're going to have sustainable culture change.
Well, I'll let Chris close us out kind of on this one, but my I was like, what a wonderful question. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I have an answer for this. I think it's a little twofold. One is a takeaway I think that I'd like to leave you with is sometimes I hear people say, they got me a coach, and they're devastated because I think lots of times that having a coach is seen as, I'm not good and I am doing something wrong and I need to be fixed. And in some cases that might be true. And at the same time, an organization isn't making an investment in you with a coach if they didn't value you or think that you could rise to the occasion. And so I would, excuse me, I would encourage people to think about, like, I get to have a coach. It is an honor to have a coach. So I'll pass it over to Chris.
That's a really good point. And I think maybe trying to string a little bit of these things together, I often work with very technical people, a lot of STEM folks that I'm working with. And so I kind of broke down this equation for people. That's what you do multiplies by how you do it to create your impact. So what times how equals impact. So that if what you do is negative, doesn't matter how good you are, how nice you are, your impact's still going to be negative. If what you do is awesome, but how you treat others is bad, your impact's still going to be negative. And for all those STEM folks that want to do the double negative and say, hey, that means it's positive. No.
Oh, come on now.
A negative what times a negative how means you are impacted. You will be let go. So, but I think it's the what we all, understand well. It's in our job description. It's the things we do every day. But people struggle the most with their how and how to measure their how. And I think coaching is one of those ways that we can open that door. And sometimes it's through assessments and things like that helps to peek in there. But it's really that work as coaches and with a coach that help you to work on your how.
Well said. Well said. So, to me, coaching is a gift. And I will leave it as that. And people could figure out how they want to unwrap, that statement around all of the wonderful stuff that you guys contributed today, Jill, Chris, and Elle. And so I'm going to just go ahead and close, and you guys can stay and hang out, So I hope today's stories and insights, maybe spark some new ideas, maybe help you inspire some growth and give you a glimpse into the transformative power of coaching. But this is just the beginning, right? This is a launch, the very first episode, and I'm so stoked that we've had this opportunity to have Jill, Chris, and Elle with us. The next episode is on February 20th, and we're going to have Arthur Jones as our guest, and we're going to have a great conversation about the future of coaching. And we're going to go deeper and talk about artificial intelligence, AI, which is a big topic for everyone, and really start to understand the impact of what that new technology could have on coaching. I don't know. I've written an article about it in Forbes, and maybe it does, and maybe it does not. But in any way, it's something for us to learn from. So for more details about ICF Arizona, I want you to visit the website at www.icfarizona.org and learn more about our coaching communities and all of the wonderful programs that we have there. And then just as we're beginning to release this podcast onto Spotify and Apple and different platforms, stay tuned. So until then, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, just like the desert, the coaching world is full of surprises waiting to be discovered. So see you at the next Coaching from the Desert episode. Take care. Ta-ta for now. That's for you, Chris.
Bye, you guys.
TTFN.
My definition of coaching is helping people achieve their level of awesomeness.
Coaching from the desert. Coaching from the desert. Coaching from the desert. Coaching from the desert. All right, there we go.